Hey everybody. In the Boston media yesterday, there was a big trade rumor going around, and I know that around here it was talked about all day yesterday. I don't know if it became a national thing or if it was just in the Boston area, but there was a potential trade rumor going around that would bring Ryan Nugent-Hopkins from Edmonton to Boston in exchange for Torey Krug and Jake DeBrusk. So I want to talk about that potential trade a little bit, why I wouldn't do that deal if I were the Bruins, on the deal the way it is, and talk about some potential deals that I would do involving these main players. But I don't know how long this video is going to run. I just want to warn you right now, this might be a long one because I'm going to go into a lot of detail and discussion about this. So the deal that was brought up yesterday was Edmonton would send Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to Boston in exchange for Torey Krug and Jake DeBrusk. And that deal, at face value, I would not do. Because if I'm the Boston Bruins, I do not want to give up Jake DeBrusk. Torey Krug, I'm okay with moving at this point. For a long time, I was big on the do not trade Torey Krug train. I think he's one of Boston's best defensemen. He's one of Boston's, certainly one of their best offensive defensemen. He's a guy who can score 50 to 60 points in a year. However, I've changed my tune on Krug a little bit because I think they have adequate people in Boston now that could replace him. Not completely replace his production, but they have enough left shot defensemen to the point where Krug is movable at this point. Edmonton, obviously, adding Torey Krug would be huge for Edmonton. They need a left shot puck moving defenseman. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would be a big boost to Boston. They need more offense. They need talent. Nugent-Hopkins is only 25 years old. He would fit in Boston nicely. He can play center or wing. Krug going to Edmonton makes a lot of sense. Nugent-Hopkins coming to Boston makes a lot of sense. So I do think that there is a potential deal here to be made. The problem is I would not also give up Jake DeBrusk. Now, Peter Schiraldi's an idiot. He's one of the worst GMs in hockey. When was the last time Peter Schiraldi made a good trade? I can't think of one. Probably not since the Dennis Seidenberg deal that brought Seidenberg to Boston back in, 2009 or 2010? It's been almost a decade since Peter Schiraldi's made a good trade. However, even I don't think he's dumb enough to trade Nugent-Hopkins for Krug 1-for-1. If that was the deal, if it was Krug to Edmonton and Nugent-Hopkins to Boston, I'm doing that deal yesterday. That deal is done before he can even finish saying the names. That deal is done. However, I don't think even Peter Schiraldi is stupid enough to trade Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to Boston for Torey Krug 1-for-1. If he's that dumb, he should be fired immediately, and Boston should take that deal before he even has the chance to think about it. So the idea is that Edmonton is trying to make the playoffs this year. They need to make the playoffs this year. He's going to want a replacement for Nugent-Hopkins in the lineup at forward, as well as adding Krug. So Jake DeBrusk is the name that was thrown around by the Boston media because that's the best Bruins young player that Edmonton would probably want. If I'm the Boston Bruins, I do not want to give up Jake DeBrusk because he is one of the few guys that we know can play. Of all the young prospects in Boston, all the kids coming up, DeBrusk is the only sure thing, really. We know Jake DeBrusk is a very good player. He can score goals. I believe he's going to be a 30-goal scorer at some point in his career, in his prime. He is a guy that I do not want to give up, and certainly not give up along with Torey Krug in this deal. So look at it from this perspective. If you're the Boston Bruins, you're trying to make your team better now. If you give up Krug and DeBrusk for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, you get a talented young offensive player for sure, but you lose DeBrusk. So you swap out Nugent-Hopkins for DeBrusk, and where do you gain? Is Nugent-Hopkins that much better than Jake DeBrusk where you gain there? Not really. And then when you add in the loss of Torey Krug, you haven't gained anything adding RNH for Krug and DeBrusk. You haven't made your team better. So that's why I wouldn't do that if I'm the Bruins. Now, they can move Torey Krug, and let me talk a little bit about why Krug is expendable at this point. They have left shot defensemen. Like, they've added John Moore. Adding John Moore has been huge for the Boston Bruins. Now, he's not nearly the offensive producer that Torey Krug is. Torey Krug can get you 50 to 60 points in a season. John Moore is going to get you 25, 30 tops. But he's another body on the left side with a left shot who can play good minutes. And I've really liked what I've seen from John Moore this year. He has been a really good addition to the Boston Bruins. He's a very solid guy. He's a great skater. I like him a lot. You also have Matt Grizzly, who is an offensive defenseman, up and coming. He's not going to produce at the level that Krug is. He's not going to get to 60 points, at least not yet. Maybe he develops into that as he gets older. He's still a fairly young player coming out of Boston University. But Grizzly can give you offensive time. He can get you assists. He can shoot the puck. He can play on the power play. And he's less than half the price of Torey Krug. Torey Krug is making $5.25 million this year. Grizzly, I believe, is making under $2 million. So he's less than half the price of Torey Krug and is still the same type of player, the same kind of offensive defenseman. So you have Moore and Grizzly there. When Char is healthy, he's your other left defenseman. You have Kevin Miller, who can play left and right side when he's healthy. You have Charlie McAvoy, who is the future in Boston. He is your up-and-coming, Norris Trophy candidate, elite number one defenseman. If he can stay healthy and develop the way that we all think he's going to, Charlie McAvoy is going to be your number one Drew Doughty type defenseman in Boston. So Krug's expendable because you have other good pieces there on the back end. So they don't have to keep Krug. He's movable at this point. DeBrusk, this is a team that is struggling for offense to begin with. You do not want to move Jake DeBrusk. If I'm the Boston Bruins and I'm looking to get better, I want Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Jake DeBrusk playing probably on the same line, playing together. So I don't want to lose DeBrusk in that trade. That is why I would not do this deal if I was the Boston Bruins. However, if you can get Schiraldi to take someone lesser than DeBrusk, a Danton Heinen, a Ryan Donato, even going down to like a Jacob Forsbacka Karlsson or a Trent Frederick, I'm 100% doing that deal. If it is anybody other than DeBrusk as far as a young prospect, I am 100% doing this deal. Because that makes your team much better right now. You get RNH into that lineup. He can play the number 2 center spot, or he can play the wing. He's a versatile player. He's got a lot of talent. He was a number 1 overall pick for a reason. I am 100% doing that deal if I'm the Boston Bruins, if it's anyone other than DeBrusk. But I do not want to give up Jake DeBrusk. Another thing that was shopped around, or that brought up and talked about in Boston radio yesterday was, what about David Krejci? Would Edmonton do that? Because Schiraldi's kind of an idiot. Well, no, he is an idiot. He's an awful trader. And Edmonton is looking to win now. Would they take David Krejci? Because if you sent Torey Krug and David Krejci, who's much older, kind of on the downswing of his career, but still playing pretty good hockey. He's played great for Boston the last 3 or so games. He's been out of his mind point production-wise. He had another 3 assists last night. Would they trade Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, a 25-year-old former number 1 overall pick with a lot of upside, for Torey Krug and David Krejci? Because if I am the Boston Bruins, I am 100% doing that deal. Because Nugent-Hopkins immediately slots in and becomes your number 2 center, where Krejci was when Bergeron's healthy at least. So then you have Bergeron as your number 1, RNH as your number 2. And you lose an aging David Krejci and an expendable Torey Krug. That is a deal I am absolutely doing if I'm the Boston Bruins. So When Peter Schiraldi calls Don Sweeney, pick up the goddamn phone. Pick up the phone, because there's a chance for a deal to be done, because Peter Schiraldi is not good at making trades. He is not good at winning trades. He's good at getting fleeced in trade deals. So pick up the damn phone and talk about it, because while the initial deal might be Ryan Nugent-Hopkins for Torey Krug and Jake DeBrusk, I'm not doing that original deal, but there are deals that I would do if you took out DeBrusk and replaced him with someone else. Or I would give up multiple of the other young players to keep DeBrusk. So say Torey Krug, Ryan Donato, and Anders Bjork for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I'm doing that. Torey Krug and Danton Heinen and Ryan Donato for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I'm doing that. Pretty much DeBrusk is just the one I don't want in it. If I can keep DeBrusk and get RNH, then I'm doing pretty much any deal that they offer. Another possible thing here. What if you just don't even want a player in return? What if you just ask for a first-round pick for Torey Krug? I guarantee you Peter Schiraldi would do that. He would give up his first-round pick in this year's draft for Torey Krug. And that would give Boston another first-round pick, probably a middle-of-the-road, probably pretty decent pick. Because Torey Krug is not the game-changing player who is going to take Edmonton from being, a borderline playoff team to, a high-end team. He's good at producing points, but he's not a team-changing kind of player. So if you trade Torey Krug for a first-round pick in Edmonton, what are you going to get from Edmonton? A pick in the 16th, 17th, 18th overall? That's a middle-of-the-road decent pick right there in the first round. I'm 100% doing that. So overall, to summarize all this up, a big potential trade in the Boston media starting really yesterday has been bringing Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to Boston from Edmonton in exchange for Torey Krug and someone else. Their pick was Jake DeBrusk, who would be probably the guy you'd want to lose. I would not do that deal if I'm the Boston Bruins. I would not trade Torey Krug and Jake DeBrusk for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. However, if you swapped out Jake DeBrusk with anyone else, Krug is expendable. I would give up any of these other young players instead of DeBrusk. I also would give up David Krejci instead of DeBrusk. Or I would just trade Krug for a first-round draft pick. Those are all possible deals that I would do. Deals that I would not do would be... the deal that I would not do would be one involving Jake DeBrusk, the one that has been talked about, Krug and DeBrusk for RNH. But Peter Schiraldi's a moron. He always gets fleeced in trades. Every deal he makes is stupid. The Jordan Eberle deal was stupid. The Taylor Hall deal was incredibly stupid. Going back to his Boston days, the Tyler Seguin deal was incredibly stupid. Every major trade this guy makes is just god awful. So I do think that if you're the Bruins, there's a deal to be made here, and Peter Schiraldi is the GM I want on the other end of the phone if I'm going to fleece somebody in the trade market. However, I would not do the Krug and DeBrusk for RNH deal. I would consider other young players to be movable, and I think there's something to work with there. So obviously this is all just rumor. This is just something that's been brought up in the media, but it's interesting to talk about. It's interesting to look at, you wonder, given the position that Boston's in, with all their injuries and needing offense, in the position where Edmonton's in, where they have to make the playoffs, or Schiraldi's probably going to lose his job, that they're going to be looking to make a deal. So I do think that there's a deal out there. I just would not do the one that is originally being proposed. So with that, let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. Check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon as well as our merchandise store. You can get this shirt, this hat, or tons of other designs and products in the merch store. That link is in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.